Hi friends, Lori Hudson, Jimmy Hudson here. We are Energy Wellness Coaching. And again, we used to be Zenergy Wellness Coaching, but we have dropped the Z for just simplicity purposes and because we specialize as professional coaches in core energy coaching. So again, it is now Energy Wellness Coaching, and we wanted to jump on today and do a quick video for you guys on vulnerability. And so you may be wondering why we chose the topic vulnerability. And so I'm excited to kind of talk about this with you guys today because I think that you will find it very meaningful as I do. I have just the definition of the word vulnerability written down. It's the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. And so I really thought it was interesting that even in the definition that it points to just even the possibility of being attacked or harmed physically or emotionally. It's interesting because those that are living in fear of being vulnerable are trying to avoid pain, right? And so unfortunately what that oftentimes causes is lack of interacting with those around you, and then that leads to the pain of isolation and loneliness. So sometimes we kind of get in our own way by trying too hard to protect ourselves. And one of the reasons that this particular topic came to my mind also is because Brene Brown wrote a book called Daring Greatly, and she has 2 TED Talks out there, which we will put in the comments below. I highly recommend that you watch these TED Talks because it's really fascinating to find out what her perspective is from all of the research that she's done on vulnerability and how really it is a critical point into just living a fulfilling life. So I just want to kind of read to you what she says in her TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability. She said, "The one thing that separates people who feel love and belonging from those who do not is the ones that have love and belonging believe that they deserve it. And those who don't have love and belonging believe that they do not deserve it." So it all boils down to a matter of whether you feel like you deserve love and belonging. So I thought that was really interesting. It had nothing to do with social class, money, intelligence, just basically, do you believe you deserve it or not? So for those of you that are feeling a little like you're not completely deserving of love and belonging, that might be an area that you would be interested in exploring. And she goes on to say that the thing that keeps us out of love and connection is our fear that we are not worthy of love and belonging. And so the word fear comes in, right? The word courage comes from the Latin root heart. And so courage means to speak with one's whole heart. And that requires vulnerability. So you have to overcome the fear. And then, of course, that leads to love and connection. So at the end, I want Jimmy to have a minute to kind of speak on some points. At the end, I want to read a poem to you guys about overcoming vulnerability and fear.
Yeah, so I just want to share with you some of the benefits of being vulnerable. One of the benefits is it builds trust and intimacy in relationships. By opening yourself up, you're creating a vulnerable space to where you allow the people in your lives to get closer, and create a more authentic connection. Can build empathy and understanding with people also, because when you're vulnerable, when you share maybe how you're feeling or something that's concerning you, and you put yourself out there, then they can understand you better and they can relate. It increases your self-worth because you understand maybe where you don't want to look at it as a weakness, but maybe where some areas where you can work on, and then you're taking an active role in your life and you are making those positive changes, which opens up growth. You open yourself up to growth by acknowledging those areas where you would like to see some growth, where if you're uncomfortable with some of these things, maybe some of your feelings, emotions, and you're not sharing them. Personally, for myself, whenever I've learned that I have a tendency to think that I've processed negative emotions, but I'm actually stuffing them. I'm internalizing them, and I'm not sharing. So it can cause resentment, it can cause frustration, and it can cause something to perpetuate itself. Where if I can just find the ability to be vulnerable and share how I'm feeling, it may upset the person that I'm sharing this with. It may help them understand me better. And regardless, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to feel lighter because I'm getting that out of my body, and I'm going to be able to process it quicker. So also, one way that I've incorporated vulnerability in my life, and it's not always comfortable, is asking for feedback, whether that's with the spouse, with a friend, with coworkers, or with say a boss at work. Looking for that 360 feedback can be very vulnerable and challenging, but as long as you're willing to take action on those items that you feel like, whenever you allow yourself to be vulnerable and you get this feedback, if you find something that's valuable and it aligns with your values yourself, with your value system, then you can see a benefit of where you would like to change that because you understand where they're coming from, then that's a great benefit of being vulnerable. Doesn't mean that you have to listen to every bit of feedback and that all the feedback is something worthy of change, but at least allowing that space for you can really dig deep and look inside yourself and say, okay, is this something, do I do this, or is this a one-time thing? So, there's a lot of benefits to being vulnerable, that it's not always easy, but the growth potential that's created once you are vulnerable is definitely well worth it.
All right, those are great points, Jimmy. And really just kind of solidifies the whole idea of the root word of courage, speaking with your whole heart. So to speak your truth and to be able to hear someone else's truth would take some vulnerability, as he was speaking to as well. Speaking of vulnerability, in the email that I sent out, I said that I was going to share an admission. I was going to admit something on the video today. And it's kind of embarrassing to admit that while it was a great idea when I thought of it, that I forgot what that was. So I guess I'm being vulnerable rather than just making something else up. I literally forgot what great thing I was going to share with you guys. So I'll put it in Facebook, or I'll share it if it ever comes back to me. But I think that's kind of how we connect as a community, is by letting down our guards a little bit. And, rather than just kind of having this surface level connection, the more real that we can get with one another, then the better we will actually know one another, and we'll have deeper connections. So I'm excited about connecting deeper with you guys, and I'm happy to invite you to just share in comments something that makes you feel vulnerable. Making these videos makes me feel vulnerable. It's not easy to put yourself out there like that, because we know that people have a tendency to judge, and I think that oftentimes we judge ourselves more harshly than anyone else does. So there's an admission. Making these videos makes me feel vulnerable, but I feel like I want to connect with my audience enough to where it's worth it, and hopefully you guys get something out of it. Anything else?
I agree, that's a great point.
Okay, so I'm going to read this poem that Brene Brown shares at the end of her TED Talk on Daring Greatly. It's a poem by Theodore Roosevelt, The Man in the Arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there's no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at best knows in the end the triumph of the highest achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So that's the beautiful thing about this life, is in each moment you get to decide how you want to show up. Do you want to live in fear and protect yourself constantly by avoiding the possibility of pain? Or do you want to put yourself out there, be vulnerable, and give it your best shot? So I hope you choose to give it your best shot. Again, in comments, let us know what situations make you feel vulnerable, and just give us some feedback back on our topics and this video. We appreciate you guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.